Perfect. Thank you very much. Hi, Lee. Nice to meet you.
Hey,
I'm
how are
Dimitri
you?
Kraus. I'm
Nice to
Dimitri
meet
Kraus.
you.
I'm a horror writer at Movie Marker UK. It's very
I
nice to
love
meet you,
it, and I,
actually.
I specifically love the uh, stuff in the background there. I think I see an upgrade and a jigsaw puppet. I mean, you're doing all the right things.
I mean, a lifelong dream realized. So this is very much very important, like a full circle moment. I mean, honestly, I
Great.
like coming back to Wolfman. I really, really found it very scary, but also really emotionally affecting. I think I
Oh,
was really
great.
moved. It shares a lot of the same DNA with The Invisible Man in that same vein of like grounded and brutal, yet very emotionally affecting films.
Oh,
In
yeah,
this
that's
one,
great. Thank you.
in this one, you sort of experiment with points of view, and I found that to be very interesting in how you kind of reshape the narrative throughout. As the family unit gets shattered, we get two
Mm.
different perspectives. Was it
Hmm.
difficult for you to kind of balance it out?
I think it is sometimes difficult to balance things out while you're making a film because you need that roadmap. You're making the film out of sequence. Although when we were in the house, we tried to shoot, in the order of the script as much as we could. But a lot of the time, you're shooting out of sequence, and you're going there each day making another short film. So you really need to keep track of like where are we on the emotional map. Um, but the North Star for me and for Christopher Abbott, was perspective and this idea that they're speaking a different language, and when people are separated by an invisible force, if someone in your family, someone close to you has brain cancer, they're changing, and the way they're viewing you is not the same anymore. Or if someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, from their perspective, they don't know who you are anymore. And so I thought the challenge for this movie was, what if we shot a movie where you are actually seeing half the movie from the person with dementia's perspective, so it's just strangers, and the other half of the movie from the side of the onlookers, the aggrieved people. So that was really what we kept in mind throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, honestly, and that's something that really struck a chord with me while I was watching. Like, I walked out, I was really quite emotional. I
Oh,
think
great!
you
I'm so
mentioned
happy to hear that.
I genuinely found it really emotional. Like, I was kind of on the verge of tears towards the end, like, the final shot especially. I think you already mentioned how we get the sense of like the vision through that perspective of someone who's no longer human, someone who's
Mm,
grappling with that humanity and love they have for their loved ones, but they can no longer perceive them. And you
yes.
kind of present that through that very, very interesting. You always experiment with form. Like in Upgrade, you had like the iPhone rig to Logan
Yeah.
Marshall Green. In like Invisible Man, it was the negative space. And here we get like Chris Abbott's perspective
Mm.
and his like visual look. How did you go about creating that like wolf vision, as you call it in the production notes?
Yeah, that's what we called it on set. We're like, Wolf Vision time. I'm really happy to hear you say that, about experimenting with form, because I really do think one of the most fun parts of making a film is 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 you look at the material, the script, the story, right, and you think, what am I going to bring to this that is unique? I.e., like the camera is such a malleable instrument. There's no one way to tell a story. Is there something I could do in this that maybe people haven't seen before? I mean, it's a lofty challenge, but like Stefan Ducio, the cinematographer that I work with, I will call him during script stage and say, okay, I'm writing The Invisible Man. What do we think about the camera just being this presence that would pan away from the main actors, and we're going to weaponize empty space? So he'll start thinking about it. He'll start emailing me little notes, videos. He's great at research. And so we start figuring out the language. And it might not be something huge. It could just be small, but it's our language. And we really do try to do that. And so for Wolfman, it was, how are we going to present his side of it? So it starts very pragmatically. We looked at how wolves see and the color range they see in. And so Stefan, he started emailing me videos of UV cameras. He's like, well, what if we used a UV camera? And then I remember Dune, the second Dune film. They used that. If you remember that, so we were thinking, okay, they stole our idea, and then, but we were really thinking about what sort of camera equipment could we use to convey the way a wolf sees, and it's really that conversation. That's how it starts. Eventually, we landed on just doing it. Believe it or not, very practically on set, we would actually have the gaffer turning the dial in the moment and changing
Really?
the light. Yeah,
So this
it's
is
it's
all in
it's
camera,
all
like
in.
all.
We would augment it with visual effects, like the look of things. There's these particles in the air, definitely augmented with visual effects. But the lighting is in camera. Believe it or not, it's really definitely using VFX and utilizing that at the end. But it was great to actually be able to use the lights in the moment.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I think kind of as we already talked about, like the perspective, like Chris Abbott came on board and you had your own vision of what you wanted the Wolfman to be. Like you've
Hmm.
said multiple times about Invisible Man and this, how you want them to be your own unique perspectives, kind of not contained to what the predecessors had in
Right,
mind. Like, the Lon Chaney Jr.,
right.
Wolfman, that's a completely different story. This is an entirely different take on it.
Mm,
What like, and you mentioned in one of your interviews, like Michael Haneke's Amor, that you screened that for your
yeah,
cast and crew.
yeah.
What kind of guidance did you give your crew, and maybe especially Chris, in giving like presenting that vision?
With Chris, I really talked a lot about disease and degenerative illnesses. We talked a lot about dementia and Alzheimer's. He had someone close to him in his family when he was growing up who was suffering Alzheimer's. And so he had this really personal touchstone for that. I've had friends, a close friend of mine who was suffering ALS. She's now passed away, but we had these very personal touchstones for disease, and that was the angle always when we were developing Chris's walk. He lives in New York and I was in Los Angeles, so we would be on Zoom calls and he would walk around his apartment and show me these different drags and these different walks. He had a movement coach who was helping him with like animal tics and animal behavior, the way that an animal's attention is grabbed by sound, and just all these little things. And you start adding these little brush strokes, and hopefully it sort of adds up to this whole picture. And I love it. I feel like horror movies don't get recognized as much as they should by awards ceremonies, but I really think Chris's performance encapsulates all the tools in an actor's, you know, uh, at an actor's disposal. He's doing theater techniques of movement, and it's just great to watch.
I mean, it really is incredible. Like you get two completely different characters throughout the whole film. Like one a father, the other one who is almost like non-human at that point, but still trying to like persevere and get like feel that fatherly love. It's
Yeah.
very interesting how his performance through physicality as well. I mean, we've
Yes.
touched upon like the kind of the subject matter of family, and if I may ask, you co-wrote this film with your wife.
Yes.
And it's interesting how, like, for me personally, like, horror has always been kind of an escape, like almost
Yeah.
like a release from a lot of
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
When you
Me
were
too.
writing this film, I guess during COVID, was it a comforting experience to share that with your loved one, especially for a film about family?
It was. It was very cathartic. I mean, you remember that first year of COVID was so discombobulating. Not being able to go outside, not knowing what was happening, going and getting tested at these. I don't know how it was going in the UK, but in Los Angeles they would have these drive-through test sites where people in
Yeah.
biohazard suits, you would pull up and they would stick stick a Q-tip up your nose, and like it was this. It felt like something from a science fiction movie. All of a sudden you're living inside Contagion or something, and it was such a discombobulating time that I was Corbett and I were putting everything into the script. All the parenting. It was very hard to parent during that time because you couldn't go out, and we're trying to make the couch fort interesting for 600 days in a row, and so it was very cathartic and I think helpful to us and it was also helpful to us to have something to do. Instead of just
Mhm.
sort of sitting around going mad, we actually would set hours and write each day, and it kind of kept us from going insane.
That's amazing. I mean, thank you so much. This was fantastic. Best of luck with the release. This
Thank
is
you. I,
really
I
like
really
a.
appreciate what you said about the movie. Genuinely appreciate it. I'm very close to the fire right now. This is one of my first interviews, so I appreciate all your kind words.
I mean, honestly, as a lifelong fan of yours, this is a great honor. Thank Thank you so much.
Man, really
It
nice to meet you. Okay, thank you, mate. Thank
was
you
a
so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you, brother.
Have a good one.
You too, sir.